How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to do a ranking video for the show Monsters. For those of you guys who don't know, Monsters is a classic anthology horror TV show that ran in the late 80s and early 90s. The big twist with Monsters is that every single episode of the show would have its own monster. You never knew what you were gonna get, but you usually got some cool special effects work, and on this channel recently, I watched and reviewed every single episode. And having finished the show, I thought, why not? I should rank my top 10 episodes. And this proved to be a little harder than I thought it would be. Monsters has 72 episodes to choose from, so there's quite a lot, but also the episodes are pretty different. Do you like the scarier episodes or the funnier episodes? Monsters has everything from sci-fi to art house to haunted house, and Monsters is one of those shows that I feel like everybody's personal top 10 might vary more than other shows. Me personally, I like the creepy episodes, so those will probably be the ones that jump to my top 10, but if yours is different than mine, or if you have an episode you want to highlight, feel free to leave in the comments what you think are the best episodes. I will say that I look back on my old reviews, and in my coverage of the individual seasons, I did a top 5 for each season. Some of them actually did rise a little bit higher than in the past. Some really stuck with me a lot more than I thought they should, so this isn't really a direct translation of my past top 5 videos, but I spent a long time thinking. I had a piece of scratch paper that I scribbled all over. But after a long analysis, I reached this list of my top 10 favorite episodes, so without further ado, let's dive into that. Starting off, of course, with number 10. And for me, number 10 will be Season 2, Episode 16. And this one is Perchance to Dream. In Perchance to Dream, a college student is having trouble falling asleep, and elements of his nightmares are escaping into reality. That's a really cool setup, but it turns out the only way to deal with this is for him and his girlfriend to literally go into Dream World. A lot of Monsters episodes are criticized for being too cheap, but for whatever reason, this one must have had a huge budget. Lots of fun special effects in the Dreamworld section, but even just the opening shot is this really cool miniature of his dorm room. Yeah, this one they pulled out all the stops for. It's a really good, fun, surreal dream episode, and I have to give it major props. I love seeing Monsters actually have a budget, and they did some cool stuff in Perchance to Dream, so I can definitely recommend this one. After that, let's move on to my number 9 pick, and for number 9, I'm going to go with Season 2, Episode 19. This one is Far Below. In Far Below, you get this guy, he's an auditor, and he finds that one of the New York City subway sections is getting a strangely high budget. He goes down there, and the guy managing it is literally Stuart Ullman from The Shining, and he finds out that there's a secret government conspiracy. In this section of the subway, monsters from deep in the earth are crawling out, and he has to send his soldiers in to try to kill them. And the fact that they're deep in the tunnels, it's really cool and grungy. Plus, this episode is directed by Deborah Hill, who you probably know as the producer on a lot of John Carpenter's movies, so there is a bit of that Carpenter action flair in this one. And talking about it really vaguely, the ending of this episode is a pretty good surprise twist. And no, you won't guess or see it coming, but it definitely leaves you after the episode thinking, wow, I did not think we would go there. That was super out of the blue. Moving on to number 8, and number 8 is a cult classic. This is Season 1, Episode 13, and this one's entitled Glim Glim. The setup for Glim Glim is really cool. A small town is entrapped in a force field, very under the dome, but everybody gets sick and dies except for 3 people, 2 men and a little girl, and the men are constantly hiding from the alien that trapped everybody in a dome, but the little girl says, don't be afraid of him, trust him, and of course the men are not going to want to do this. She's named the alien Glim Glim, and Glim Glim is a big, goofy 1950s styled alien. The costume's like this big blob, and he's got big horns and like 4 eyes and 4 arms. He is so so cool and silly, but also strangely iconic, and I think Glim Glim might be everybody's favorite monster. But also, in addition to that, this episode does have a really good ending. Again, not spoiling any of the endings, but yeah, this actually has a really good final shot to it. Glim Glim's a cult episode, and it's one that I watched and thought was good, but it has risen in my ranks over time. It's one that sticks in your head and doesn't really leave, and yeah, at the end of the day, everybody loves Glim Glim. Moving on to number 7, and that will be Season 2, Episode 9, and this one's entitled Reaper. Reaper is based on a short story by Robert Bloch, the guy that wrote Psycho, and in this story, we get an old man in hospice, and he doesn't want to die. The Grim Reaper himself shows up, and he winds up making a deal with the Grim Reaper. If he kills someone himself whenever the Grim Reaper asks him to, he can stave off death for a little while longer. He tries to kill off people that have it coming, but these deaths always have some cruel and ironic twist to them, and this episode really has a good sense of dark and ironic humor. Very classic anthology horror there, but plus it's an episode with the Grim Reaper in it. That's always cool. And again, won't spoil it, but cool ending on this one. After that, let's move into my number 6 pick, and that will be Season 3, Episode 8, A Shave and a Haircut, 2 Bites. In this episode, you have 2 teenage boys. One lives in an apartment building across the street from this barber shop and says, I think the barber shop down there is secretly a front for vampires. Very Fright Night right from the beginning, am I right? Well, this kid explains to his friend the secret connection throughout history between barbers and vampires, and you think, okay, this is kind of a far-fetched, where's this coming from? But the more the kid explains it, the more you realize, wow, there's actually a sense of logic here, and it's really well thought out, super engaging, and really does pull you in, even though a lot of this episode's just talking. And there's 2 reasons it pulls you in. One, this episode was written by famous novelist Dan Simmons, so yeah, it's really well thought out. But 2, the kids in this episode are before they were famous appearances from Will Wheaton and Matt LeBlanc. Really cool to see them here. This is the weird episode of Monsters where Wesley Crusher is telling Joey from Friends how barbers are secretly vampires. Got to love it. I won't spoil it, but there is a reveal in here, and it's one that really does stay with you. Yeah, A Shave and a Haircut, 2 Bites. Really, really good episode. Alright, we're in the top 5 now, and let's move on to Dan Simmons' other episode, why not? For number 5, I'm going to pick Season 2, Episode 18, and this one's entitled The Offering. In this episode, a guy's mother is in the hospital dying from cancer. He crashes his car on the way to the hospital and wakes up in a bed just a few doors down from her. He's got some brain damage, and when he wanders into her room, he sees something strange and startling and unexpected. A giant alien creature sticking its tongue into his mother's flesh and eating something. Yeah, it turns out there's a secret conspiracy. Alien beings plant cancer in people. That's where it comes from. It grows and they harvest it, killing the humans for food. They're cancer vampires. And this one guy is the only one in the whole world that knows, and that's because the brain damage lets him see the invisible creatures. That's a really far out concept, but it's also one of those super, super dark conspiracies. What if there was something that was tragic, but there was some weird and strange reason for it, and you were the only one who knew? What would you do? Yeah, this one is dark and scary, and when you see that creature for the first time, boy, does it stick in your brain. I absolutely love this episode. Very, very creepy. Let's move on to number 4 now. For number 4, I'm going to pick Season 3, Episode 16, and this one's entitled The Waiting Room. The Waiting Room stars horror legend John Saxon. You may know him from Nightmare on Elm Street, Tenebrae, or Black Christmas. He's been in a ton of stuff and he really adds a lot to this episode. In this episode, a young newlywed couple spend their honeymoon in this hotel and the wife wakes up to find her husband missing. The husband's father, John Saxon, is also staying in this hotel, and when he hears his son is missing, he's not really surprised. It turns out something strange has been following John Saxon his whole life since his own honeymoon. Every now and then he'll open a door, and instead of the room he wants to go to, there's a mysterious other room on the other side with a woman living in it, and she's always there whenever he happens to wander into this place, and she wants him to stay with him forever and ever. And I love how it's something that is never fully explained, like who is this woman? Why does she want John Saxon? What type of creature is she? But that leads into this thing, this irrational fear that if you open a door, something else might be on the other side. It's a really good, creepy, and disturbing episode. And plus, Saxon as the father-in-law, really good performance here. Let's move on to number 3. For number 3, I'm going to pick Season 1, Episode 18, and this one's entitled The Match Game. The Match Game stars Ashley Lawrence, who you may remember as the final girl from Hellraiser. Super great to see her in this episode, and this is another creepy one. I love the creepy ones. In this episode, you get a group of teens going to a super creepy haunted house, and they start playing the match game. Basically, you light a match, and while it's burning, you get to tell a scary story. When it's over, the next person strikes a match and takes over the story from you. Well, they have this kind of weird friend, and he's a very vivid storyteller, and they start to make up a legend of who owned this house before them. But as they start to tell the story, things get more and more intense. Things from the story start to happen, and they start to worry that the super intimidating villain from the story might actually show up. It's great atmosphere. You really get into the story they're telling. Plus, there is also some good special effects work. And again, great to see Ashley Lawrence in something. I wish she was in a whole lot more. But let's move on to number 2. Number 2 is an episode I absolutely love, and that is Season 3, Episode 8. And this one's entitled The Hole. In The Hole, you get soldiers in the Vietnam War, and they have to go in these tunnels dug by the Vietnamese. And it turns out that because they can't go above ground to bury their dead, they've been burying them in the walls. And that's a creepy thought. These tunnels are already super claustrophobic anyway, but the idea that there's a dead person just inches from your face inside the walls, that's super creepy. But it turns out this is a zombies episode. The war has offended the spirits, and now the dead are rising from their graves, and you literally get zombies bursting out of the walls. They're all rotten and decomposing, and these tunnels are a claustrophobic maze nightmare. This episode is a super intense zombies episode, and I absolutely love it. It's probably the most intense Monsters ever got, and one of my favorite zombie stories. And honestly, this episode's good enough to hold its own with a lot of zombie movies, even though it's just a half-hour TV time block. Moving on to number 1, and number 1 is one that, like, if you just ask me, hey, what do you think the best episode of Monsters is? I would kind of instinctively say this episode, and that, of course, will be Season 1, Episode 23, and this one's entitled Mannequins of Horror. This is another Robert Bloch story, and in this episode, we get an oppressive future, and this guy who was a brilliant surgeon has gone insane and has been locked up in this government asylum. Well, it turns out he thinks he can preserve his own life if he makes an exact replica of himself. So he's making all these tiny little clay versions of him, but he's putting in fully realized anatomy, like tiny little stomachs and intestines and tiny little brains. So yeah, you have this cold, oppressive atmosphere of the totalitarian government. You have the doctor that's trying to help him and the head of the asylum who just kind of wants to sweep him under the rug. But then then you know that this is Monsters. Maybe he's onto something with these little mannequins, and maybe out of the corner of my eye, did I see one of them move? Yeah, this is an absolutely classic Monsters episode, and I definitely believe this is the best one. It really feels movie quality with these nice stop motion special effects and the gloomy cinematography. I absolutely love this, and I find that it's definitely the best episode in the series. But that's my ranking. What did you guys think? If I left off your favorite episode, remember that this is just my opinion, and feel free to share yours in the comments. Overall, Monsters is a really fun show, and there are more good episodes than just these 10. I would definitely recommend checking it out. This show is something I have a lot of fun with, and watching all the episodes was a really cool ride. Definitely recommend Monsters to Anthology horror fans. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Monsters playlist. If you guys want to see me talk about individual episodes of this show, you should be able to find those there, and there should be one for every single episode. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Playlist here. Have a good day now.